Good morning, everyone. My respect to our dear professor, Ma'am Nerissa Malcolm Beatriz, and to all my virtual classmates. My report is all about adjustment, frustration, and conflict. But before I start discussing, I have here a picture to find out what exactly it implies. Adjustment. Adjustment is a process by which living organisms maintain a balance between its need and circumstances. Meaning, it is a continual process by which a person varies his behavior to produce more harmonious relationship between himself and environment, according to Gates, Durcell, and others, 1970. Next, it is a continual process by which a person varies his behavior to produce a more harmonious relationship between himself and the environment. It is a continual outcome of individual's attempt to deal with the stress and meet his needs, also his efforts to maintain harmonious relationship with the environment. And the last one, psychological survival, and much the same as the biologist issues the term adaptation to describe sociological survival. Psychological survival in the sense that in much the same ways as biologist uses the term adaptation to describe sociological survival according to von Haller 1970. Adjustment have different characteristics. First, adjustment help us to keep balance between our needs and the capacity to meet these needs. Meaning, keeping balance in such a way that when we are able to adjust with our environment, no worries, everything will be smooth sailing and meeting our needs is possible. Next, adjustment implies changes in our thinking and way to demands of the situation. In our present situation, we are being hindered to too much exposure or to crowd. We must have a control and be contented staying inside for good. Here na po pumapasok yung adaptability. If before we do unlimited parties and gatherings, this time in order to evade from illness, as knowledgeable person, we obey as required for we have behaved accordingly. Next is, it gives us ability and strength to desirable changes in the state of our environment. Okay. Meaning, if we are aiming for something, we try hard to do our best, regardless of struggle, just to attain our goal. Like, for example, from being a timid person to a very confident one. Another is adjustment is psychosociological as well as physiological. In these characteristics, I have here an example. There are always times for us that it takes a person to become uncomfortable living with someone else. If you experience to be assigned an area far away from your home, the thought that you will be departed from your family makes you uncomfortable and uneasy. The last one is adjustment learned as happiness and contentment. Yes, it is, because living in the environment which you feel free and unharmed simply bring us happiness and contentment. Now, how do we know if a person is adjusted or not? Okay, take a look at this one. Well-adjusted person possess these different characteristics. First, free from physical ailment. Ibig sabihin, walang sakit. Walang dinaramdam, ika nga. Next, psychological comfort. Now, psychological diseases or depression or anxiety. Hindi po natin ito nakakakitaan ng mga uh, gestures or reaction na something abnormal. Tulad po nung nagsasalita na mag-isa, or reaction that is something noticeable. Next is social acceptance. Able to mingle with anyone. Next is self-understanding about assets and limitation. Knows about its status in life and its limitation, of course. Then, self-respect. And then the other one, balanced level of aspiration. Under balanced level of aspiration, an adjusted person maintain and control interest and a goal-directed pattern of behavior. Next, we have strong willpower. Adjusted person have a strong will and a positive thinker. Healthy attitude and interest. As much as possible, high-tempered and open-minded at any circumstances. Emotionally controlled. And then, intellectually developed. Intellectually developed speaks more on how a person think knowledgeably and reasonably. Now we come to maladjustment. Okay? Maladjustment is degree of disharmony between individual and the environment. Maladjustment results from frustration and conflict. In this part, you can see a child or even an adult hesitant of the crowd and doubting of his or her own ability because it is often results from conflict. Second, individual struggles between his abilities and capacities and his environment. It resembles a struggle of his or her own ability and acceptance of the environment. And the last one, it indicates the failure of individual to adjust to a situation. Dito na po yung nagpapakita ng difficulty in adjusting in a particular situation. Okay. Next is the symptoms of maladjustment. Ito po yung mga common symptoms. Nervous disorder, fear, anxiety, or phobia. And then, we have this habits disorder, speech, asleep. Behavioral disorders naman, unmanageable aggression, truancy. And then, under educational, backwardness, indiscipline, concentration, inability to keep job. Usually po sa mga bata natin nakikita ang mga ito, na-observe natin kadalasan. Yung pagiging undisciplined, out of concentration. Tapos hirap po silang bumuo or tapusin ang mga gawain. Laging nasa span lang ng kanilang interest. Kaya as teacher, we keep on looking for activities to sustain it. Okay, we come now to process of adjustment. An adjustment mechanism is a device used by the individual to achieve satisfaction of the need indirectly. This helps reducing tension and stress in maintaining self-respect. We have this compensation, an individual attempt to cover up his weakness in one area by exhibiting his strength, and then identification. Individual attempt to identify himself with successful person, to hide his own failures. A student identify himself by his father and talk about his success. Other process of adjustment or rationalization, it is shifting from responsibility and then projection, tendency to push out upon another person one's own unrelated, frustrated ambition. And then the daydreaming, an imaginative fulfillment of life. Okay, we come now to adjustment program in school. Kasi po sa school, mas madaling ma-observe whether a person is adjusted or maladjusted. And if it is in the younger age, mas madali po nating nabibigyan ng remedy. Okay, here are the following adjustment program in school. First, achieving testing, interpretation, and then follow-up. And then, diagnostic testing. Ito pong diagnostic testing, kinakandak ito usually po at the beginning of the school year. Then we have this identification and analysis of adjustment behavior. Ito naman pong program na to, ginagawa para ma-identify why is that child act that way. And then we have this variety of instructional methods, iba't ibang methods, para lang ma-find out whether a person is adjusted or maladjusted. Then, individual and remedial work. And the last one is counseling. Okay, dito naman po sa counseling, it is always under the hands of school counselors. Dahil dito po talagang dinadaan sa iba't ibang means just to help a child in their behavioral needs. Okay, we come now to the spheres of adjustment. We have 3 spheres of adjustment: the personal adjustment, the social adjustment, and the occupational adjustment. Under personal adjustment po, dito po pumapasok yung adjustment to physical development and health, adjustment with regard to mental development and then health, emotional adjustment, sexual adjustment, and adjustment with respect to individual needs. And under social adjustment, we have the home and family adjustment, adjustment with friends and relatives, and then adjustment with neighbors and other members of the community. Then we have the occupational adjustment sa trabaho. Usually sa trabaho, kasi tulad natin, mga nagtatrabaho, these are the common spheres. Okay. No regret about the choice of work and occupation. Demonstrate a job satisfaction through performance of duties. Satisfied with working condition. Get along with colleagues and official world. And then positive attitude towards the work. Engaging in bridging necessary improvement and modification in work. Okay, we are done with adjustment. Let's come now to frustration. Frustration is a condition being thwarted with a satisfaction of motive. It is an emotional tension resulting from lacking of a desire or need. The feeling of being blocked, thwarted in satisfying a need of attaining a goal that individual perceive as significant. Frustration occurs when goals is blocked. Frustration lies both in individual and his environment. Frustration results from mental tensions. One basic example of frustration po is kapag may bagay tayong gustong-gusto and then hindi natin nakuha, we become frustrated. Sa madaling sabi, okay po. We have different causes of frustration. First is the external or environmental. External or environmental covers natural calamities, social factors, economic factors, and corruption. Natural calamities tulad ng bagyo, earthquake, na nagkukos ng damages sa ating mga ari-arian. And, of course, nagbibigay sa atin ng frustration. Social factors naman, yun po yung mga behaviors na nakikita natin sa ating environment. Tulad po ngayon, mandatory po yung pagpapa-implement ng vaccination. And for those who doesn't want to be vaccinated, they become frustrated. Though they have reasons for that, wala silang magawa kasi It is being required. And sinasabi pa na once hindi ka nagpa-vaccine, mawawalan ka ng trabaho. That makes a person frustrated, especially those who doesn't want to be vaccinated. That is po under social factors, norms and rules of society. Economic factors naman po, poverty, and then the wage. Hirap na po tayo, kulang pa yung sahod. What comes next? Frustration. May pinapag-aral ka, may member of the family kang may sakit, and yet wala kang maibigay. Siyempre po, ang magiging bottom line, magiging frustrated. Okay. Next is corruption. Corruption po na nagiging sanhi ng paghihirap ng mga tao sa ating bansa. That is very much frustrating. Okay, we come now po doon sa second cause of frustration. We call it internal or personal frustration. Ano naman po ang mga sakop na itong tinatawag nating internal or personal frustration? Okay, first, physical defeat and abnormality. Physical defeat. Saan po ito nangyayari? Halimbawa po, yung mga atleta natin, na grabe ang pagpupursigi. Practice dito, practice doon, diet, and so on and so forth, para manalo. And then it happens, unwantedly, natalo. Nagkakaroon po ng tinatawag nating internal frustration, physical defeat. Okay. Mental deficiency, conflicting desires, moral values, high level of aspiration. Mental deficiency doesn't have to be yung tinatawag nating retarded. Hindi po yun. Mental deficiency, hindi po siya masyadong tinatawag dito severe. Yan. Meron lang something or defective sa kanyang behavior. Kasi po yung mentally retarded, meron pa naman pong cure. Hindi naman po ibig sabihin na nagpapakita ng mga simptomas, abnormal na. Nagagawan pa po ng paraan. But it's still frustration. Conflict and desires. Halimbawa po, meron kang mga bagay na nais. Gustong-gusto mong makarating sa ibang bansa, wala ka namang pera or kaya pwedeng makontak para makapunta ka doon. Napo-frustrate ka dahil gusto mo yung bagay na yon. Okay. Moral values and then high level of aspiration. Yan po ang sakop ng mga internal or personal frustrations. Okay, let us have the last one, conflict. Conflict is a painful emotional state which results from a tension between opposed and contradictory. It is a stage of tension brought by the presence of two or more opposing desires. This is also a state of affairs in which two or more incompatible behavior trends are evoked that cannot be satisfied fully at the same time. Conflict is usually a clash or motives. According to Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, a conflict is a turning point during which an individual struggles to attain some psychosocial quality. Sometimes it is referred to as psychosocial crisis. This can be a time of both vulnerability and strength, as the individual works towards success or failure. Douglas and Holland also says, conflict means a painful emotional state which results from tension between opposed and contradictory wishes. We come now to types of conflict. First, approach conflict. It occurs when you choose between two desirable outcomes. Second, approach avoidance conflict. Exists when one event or goal has both attractive and unattractive features. And then number three, avoidance conflict. It occurs when one must choose between two unattractive outcomes. Okay, this is the example of the conflict. Approach. You both like burger and tacos. Okay, for second picture, an ice cream. You wanted an ice cream, but you don't want to increase your weight. For number three, avoidance. Okay, for the last one, avoidance. You wanted to eat this one, but you don't want to be hospitalized. Okay, a very simple explanation for the conflict. Okay, that would be all for my report. Thank you so much for listening.